My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome in. Today, we are joined by two special guests, Will Bocek and Hanlon Walsh, joining us from the Tennis Tribe. Thanks so much for coming on, guys. How are you today?
Doing good. Thanks for having us. Happy to hop back on the show and talk doubles. I feel like we do a kind of quarterly recap every few months, so I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, thanks, Brenner. Good to be here.
Great. So let's get right into it. Quick overview in terms of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be primarily looking back on the U.S. Open in terms of doubles, all three editions, the mixed doubles, the men's doubles, the women's doubles, and then we'll also get a little bit into Davis Cup and kind of the future of doubles going forward. So I just want to start with the mixed doubles, and I want to just talk about the big picture. The state of doubles, mixed doubles coming to the U.S. Open with a new format. I just want to ask you guys a little bit about your thoughts on the format, and I guess you can even talk about the marketing as a whole before we get into the play itself.
Yeah, so the format this year, well, first off, people should know that it's definitely going to change next year. It's an evolving thing, and the U.S. Open kind of ran an experiment this year, it seems like. I personally would have loved to have seen more double specialists in the field, obviously. I'm super biased, obviously, like working with some of them and having a lot of them on my podcast and, gotten to know a lot of them. But my kind of big takeaway was that I think it actually worked quite well. And I think that it proved that if you market doubles, then the product is fantastic. It just needs more marketing. We ended up with, of course, the only double specialists in the field, or the only double specialist team in the field, winning the tournament, which was really, I love to see personally, and was not super surprised to see that for people who follow doubles and understand how doubles strategy works, like to see them beat a lot of the top single stars wasn't super shocking. But what was really fascinating was by the semis and the finals, how the crowd started to really get behind the Italians a lot of the time and really love watching Sara Errani and Andrea Vavasori and watch them beat these top singles players, even with Errani's 60-mile-an-hour serve. So it's really was kind of a perfect example of where doubles can be if marketed and delivered in the correct way.
Yeah, I would add on to what Will said, and I think it was ironic and kind of a funny way that Errani and Vavasori ended up winning the only double specialists in the field when they were trying to get rid of the double specialists essentially and make it more singles focused. So kind of a funny irony there, but also like Will was saying, just overall, I think a huge net positive, and would applaud the USTA for trying something different. Of course, there's going to be kinks to work out, but I think overall it was a huge win, and just definitely a lot of eyeballs on mixed doubles that warm up week to make it a true three week tournament. So interested to see what kind of changes they come up with next year.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was definitely interesting. I think another thing to note was that they held this mixed doubles event during Fan Week. So I think that's a first as well. I thought that was interesting as, you had Arthur Ashe, which was, you had to pay for tickets, but for the first 2 rounds, and Louis Armstrong. That was open to the public for free, which is what Fan Week is all about. So I thought that actually added like another dimension to it in terms of getting more eyes. But obviously, this was a very, very hyped up event. I want to ask you guys a little bit about the selection process, and we saw things kind of breaking down as the event got closer, and that's probably in part because of previous tournaments. But we'll start with multiple players dropping out, and then you have scenarios where specifically Sinner and Siniakova were planning on playing together, and then obviously Sinner had to drop out after his illness in Cincinnati, and that left Siniakova without a partner. And based upon the ruling, because she was already like in the draw, she couldn't find an alternate partner, if that was correct. I'm just curious about kind of the selection process in terms of them, finding the teams, creating the teams, and maybe, as we probably know, it was obviously trying to get more eyes and using the singles players to draw more attention. But why did they avoid, the double specialists in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it was TV. They needed the TV contract to make this work, and ESPN was not going to sign a TV contract with all double specialists because the double specialists are not stars currently. And I've got an argument for why that's the case. It's not because of their tennis ability, but they needed stars. Otherwise the TV deal wouldn't work. So to get stars, you have to get the singles players because all of our current tennis stars are singles players. So to do that, they had to make the selection process very singles heavy. They wanted players like Alcaraz and Djokovic and Iga and all of these stars to be playing in the tournament to keep ESPN happy and to fill up the stadium and to get as many eyeballs as possible, because the stars are what draw fans, whether it's on TV or into the stadium. So, it worked. Like, they got Alcaraz to play, they got Djokovic to play, they got Iga to play, Fritz, Rybakina, all these really, really good singles players and stars. But the argument that a lot of people have made is that, then all of a sudden it's not a meritocracy, right? Like, if it's a Grand Slam tournament, then you want the best teams or the best players at that event to be in it. And without Siniakova, without Shea Sue, without Mate Pavic, a lot of these double specialists, you don't have the best mixed doubles players in the world playing in the tournament. And that's something that I think they're going to work to change going forward. But for this first year, to prove the concept, they had to have the single stars, which I get. I get why they did that. So that's, I guess, the best way I can kind of explain it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'm also curious, Hanlon, your thoughts on the format. And what I mean by that is like the fast format, having multiple matches in a day. How do you think that went? Did you find that entertaining, successful?
I was skeptical about it initially. And the more, I got into the tournament, I know it was a quick 2-day event, but I don't think it made as much of a difference as I expected it to. The matches were still anywhere from, I think, 45 minutes to like a little over an hour or so, and still had the same level of drama that, a set to 6 would have. I do think the timing, and I know this is really hard to control, but the timing of, having it that first Tuesday immediately after the Monday Cincinnati final was really challenging. And hopefully Cincinnati will be able to make some changes next year to have their final potentially on Sunday to avoid some of the last minute pullouts from Sinner and anyone else who was in the finals there. So that was one thing that, Siniakova really got screwed, like you said, just having different partners sort of flake out. But in terms of the scoring format, the fast four, I thought worked pretty well. And that's, probably the only way that you're going to get those top players to sign up, if it is some type of, expedited scoring format. And then I know the main criticism of that is that a lot of people were we're calling it an exhibition, and just because of the 2-day event and the shortened scoring format. So I think you can make an argument either way, but to get the top players to play, you've got to meet in the middle somehow. And I imagine that was a deal breaker for a lot of them. So it's hard to say, but I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Right. No, that makes sense. I'm also curious, I guess, what did you guys think of the level from the singles specialists, we'll call them, as you guys obviously watch, analyze, know everything about the doubles as a sport? Where did you see the level of play? Was it frustrating at times?
Yeah. I wrote about this actually in a post mixed tournament reaction. And I thought, I mean, they play like singles players, right? Like, which is not surprising. That's what they do. If they trained for doubles for like 3 months, they'd probably develop some really good double skills, like you saw from Vavasori and Irani. They're very good with a tennis racket and tennis ball, so they could probably figure it out if they wanted to. But they don't train for that stuff, so they played like singles players. And when you're playing doubles like a singles player against doubles players, you usually don't win. So the what we saw was a lot more kind of baseline rallies from the singles players, less movement at the net. They didn't play quite as tight to the net. And then when you saw Vavasori and Irani, they did the opposite. They would not get into extended rallies from the baseline. They covered the middle at the net. They played super tight at the net. They finished volleys with really sharp angles. And some of the crowd reactions were loudest for Irani and Vavasori, because a lot of that crowd doesn't watch a lot of doubles. So when they saw those like doubles specialist moves and shots, it's something they haven't seen before, and they were just enthralled by it. They were like, oh my gosh. And a lot of them, of course, play doubles, but they don't hit angles like that. They don't play that close to the net. So, yeah, I mean, I thought the level was about like what I expected. What did surprise me was how fun it was to watch the contrast in styles. So to watch Irani and Vavasori in that final against Iga and Casper, or even in the first round against Fritz and Rybakina, like, I knew that the styles would be different, but when I watched it on TV, it was just so clear and apparent. And that made it really fun to watch. Like, what's going to win out? This like raw power and athleticism from the baseline, or these highly precise skills at the net? And then it turns out the net skills won. But that was really fun to watch, and watch the singles players try to kind of problem solve Vavasori at the net, especially.
Agreed.
I also think too, Irani's serve was, again, just like one of the highlights of the tournament. And last summer at the Olympics, Medvedev had infamously struggled returning Irani's serve, and I think missed 3 or 4 returns in a row. And then this year, a lot of the ATP guys that she faced, like Taylor Fritz in the first round, and then a few others, I forget who they played each round, but each of them struggled with the slow pace on her serve. So that was, I think, entertaining to watch, but also just a reminder on like the slowing down pace and using variety and different spins is such an effective strategy in mixed doubles as well. And Irani is just such a master class on the doubles court, and was really just, like Will said, just wowing fans each round. And they built up such a solid fan base.
Agreed. I thought it was obviously, I thought it was very entertaining. And I'll wrap up this mixed doubles part with more of a question about the future. Will, you already mentioned how they won't necessarily be repeating this in the same sense, whether it be format, dates, teams. But I'm just curious, will this have an impact on other slams doing a format like this? Did you feel like it was more strictly based because of the US, or do you see just anything in terms of the mixed doubles format tournament changing at major events?
Yeah, I think the general kind of consensus that I'm hearing, and I don't know if this is a for sure thing, but people have been asking about this, and most people agree that the next tournament to do something like this would be Australia. Wimbledon would be like maybe the last to change, because they're so kind of set in their ways and about the tradition. And then the French Open doesn't, they're pretty resistant to change as well. So if we see it, it would probably be in Australia. And I don't know if it would be next year or the year after or what. And then in terms of the format, I think we'll see more double specialists get a chance to play next year. I don't know how they'll change it. I have some ideas that I wrote about in that reaction article that, and I've heard some other ideas since then from players and coaches that I like a lot too. But I do think some of the double specialists will get more of a chance to play next year, which is going to be a good thing. I think it's going to stay in during fan week. And they're going to have to keep it relatively short to get those single stars to play. So I think it'll probably remain over 2 days, or if they do it over 3 days, they'll give those single stars a bye in the first round so that it's only 2 days for them. They'll have to do something like that to keep the single stars kind of on board. So we'll see what happens, but I'm excited, honestly, to see how it evolves. US Open was the first one to take a risk and try something, and it paid off. And I give them credit for trying it out. And I'm hoping that they will start to give double specialists a bigger chance. And to their credit also, I know we're about to get into men's and women's doubles, but they did a way better job this year of marketing men's and women's doubles, and it worked. If you saw, they also adjusted the scheduling, but if you watch some of the semifinals and finals matches, the crowds were better than they typically are at the semis and finals of a Grand Slam for doubles, because they did marketing on Instagram and Twitter and on all their social media. And then they also scheduled it properly. So credit to the US Open for trying something and doing a really nice job.
Sure. Any final thoughts, Hanlon, on the mixed event?
Similar to Will, I like to see more double specialists get a crack at playing, and what would it be like if there was even a singles versus doubles sides of the draw where the winner of each gets to play in the final. So it'll be interesting to see what changes they made next year. But I think we're all in consensus that more of the singles versus doubles matchups are always big hype and a big occasion, both from a fan and a player perspective. And the doubles community, you could tell, really was rallying behind Ronnie and Vavasori, and I think they had a lot to prove and a lot at stake. So overall, it was really cool to see the Italians face that huge task with a community of doubles specialists rooting behind them and see them come through and win.
Totally. All right, so let's move into the men's doubles first. Granollers and Zeballos, they take down Skupski and Salisbury. This is their second major of the year. We'll start broad. Just what'd you make of their run?
Yeah, so they hadn't played a tournament since Wimbledon, where they made the semifinals. Before that, they hadn't played a tournament since the French Open, which they won. So it was almost like a Djokovic type schedule for them this year, because I know Djokovic did that in singles. I think Granollers has struggled with a little bit of injuries this year, so maybe that's the reason for that. I haven't spoken with them, so I'm not sure exactly, but I was impressed. I was surprised to see them not play any lead-up tournaments and be in that kind of form. That said, they went to a third set in 4 out of their 6 matches. They were all very, very tight matches. In the round of 16, they won in a third set 10-point tiebreaker. Skupski and Salisbury certainly had their chances to win that final. And I think, Hanlon, you might know this. I think this is the first team on the men's side to repeat to win 2 slams in 1 calendar year in quite a while. I think it's been a while since.
So it's 2019. Cabal and Farah won Wimbledon and US Open in the same calendar year. But yeah, first time this decade. There's been a lot of parity in men's doubles the last few years. So it's not too surprising, but it's also good to see a little bit more consistency from some of those top teams winning multiple majors in a year.
Totally. I also want to think about storylines, and obviously this is a little bit of US Open bias, but Cash and Tracy, This duo is from Ohio State. Is that correct?
Yeah, they made a good run to the semifinal. They've had a great year. I mean, they they won NCAAs a year ago, and then with that, they get a wild card into the U.S. Open and a few other events. They did well. I think they won a match at the U.S. Open, made the finals in Newport, and this year, Tracy was playing a bit of singles, and they've just decided to focus on doubles straight out of college, which is, I think, becoming a little more common, but still, I would say probably not the norm. And they have just skyrocketed this year. They've done such a nice job, and they've started working with a coach, Andy Fitzel, the last few months. Got their first title down in Mexico. I had them on the podcast after that. Their team chemistry is great, obviously both going to Ohio State and being teammates there. And to watch their energy, they still have that kind of college energy, which is a lot of fun. And they had some really exciting matches. I was able to attend their quarterfinal match actually on court 17, which was just the atmosphere was so electric. So it was fun to watch them do that. And I hope that they'll stay together and continue to have success in doubles, because I think it's good to have kind of an American doubles team near the top of the game if they can get there.
Hanlon, before you go, I want to ask a follow-up question. Will, you mentioned, you hope they stay together. What would be a factor that would, pull them apart at this stage or down the line?
Is this for Hanlon or me?
For you, Will. You mentioned.
Oh, sorry.
Stories.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, teams will split. There's no secret to this stuff. People ask a lot about partnerships. Why do people decide to play together? Why do people decide to split? It's no different than if you're in a club level USTA league. It's obviously a higher level of tennis. It's more professional. But if sometimes people just quit getting along. Sometimes people feel like they maybe get on a losing streak and feel like they can have more success with another partner. It could be any number of reasons that a team might split up. But it's nothing I don't know. It's nothing that would really surprise anybody. There's no secret formula to doubles partnerships on the Pro Tour.
Got it. Yeah, Hanlon, go ahead. Any thoughts on Cash and Tracy, the attention they brought?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you mentioned them, because that was, I think, the best story of the tournament for me too. And just being, biased, like you said, being an American fan, but Will and I both played college tennis. And I think there's just a lot to like about Cash and Tracy from a branding and marketability standpoint. Just being young, specializing together in doubles, having the college built-in fan base. Both seem like pretty nice, likable guys, good chemistry on and off the court. And they're, probably, a solid 5 to 10 years younger than the average, top doubles player. So they've got a long runway to really build that brand and keep this consistency going if they do stay together, like Will said, and stay healthy. But we interviewed them at the Dallas Open earlier this year in February. That was one of their first breakout events. And since then, they've just been on a tear. I think they're in the top 30 or top 35 now. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're, a top 10 team or a top 5 team this time next year, if not sooner, just the way that they keep building. So hopefully for American fans and just for the state of doubles, their popularity will only continue to grow. Because I do think they have not a Bryan brother. I'm not going to say they're going to win 16 majors, but I do think they have a Bryan brother-esque potential from just a marketing standpoint if they keep building and building over the next decade or so.
Totally. Something to look forward to. Another team that I want to ask you guys about is the Cincinnati Masters champions, which was Rahm and Mektic. Any thoughts on their run? Surprised that they went out in the quarters, or was Cincinnati a surprising run?
I don't think so. I mean, they were a relatively new partnership in Cincinnati, and sometimes with those new partnerships, it takes a few tournaments to kind of gel and find that chemistry. But they both are, Grand Slam champions. Rajiv, I talked to him after Cincinnati on the podcast, and he said he felt like it was the best tennis he's been playing all year. And that Cincinnati run, I was there for a few days and watched one of their matches, and you could see that it was not a fluke that they won that tournament. They didn't win a bunch of matches 12-10 in a third set tiebreaker where they, were squeaking by. They were the better team than their opponent for each of those matches in Cincinnati. So to see them make the quarters wasn't surprising. To see them go out to Bombury and Venus, it was a 3-set long match. It was a battle. I mean, in men's doubles on any given day, I feel like any of these teams can go out. You saw the top seeds, Cash and Glasspool, lose in the first round, 7-6, 7-6. And I've talked about this before, and I can't stress it enough. Like, the margins in men's doubles, it's got to be the thinnest of any of the events in tennis. It is. If you lose your focus for 3 points, you lose the match. Like, it is that thin. So it's so difficult. And I didn't get to watch their quarterfinal match because I was flying home actually on that day. But they, I imagine there was just a handful of points that didn't go their way, and that's why they went out there. But Rajiv, I saw him last week in Delray at Davis Cup. He was playing great there. So I expect him to continue to play well through the rest of the year and into next year as well.
Sure thing. Any match of the tournament you guys want to highlight on the men's side?
Will was there, so I'll let him weigh in on that since he saw a lot of doubles in person.
Yeah, I wasn't at the final, but I mean, the final was a great match. Yeah. It went to 3 sets. Skupski and Salisbury have been, I would say, since like April or May, like maybe the most consistent team on tour. They made the finals at Roland Garros. They've made a deep run at basically every big tournament they've played in. I think this was their 4th final of the year, and they were 0-3 before that, or maybe this was their 5th, and they were 0-4, and they win the first set. 5th final. So they win the first set, and then the second set goes to 7-6. They have their chances, and then 7-5 in the third. So it was certainly a pretty epic final in terms of quality and just drama as well. So I'd probably pick that one if I had to pick one, even though I wasn't there.
I like it. I mean, almost 2.5 hours too. So yeah, definitely an epic. All right,
and a repeat of the Roland Garros final too, which was cool to see 2 teams play each other twice in major finals. And then I think you mentioned this too before we switched to women. The other, the biggest men's doubles story of the summer was Cash and Glasspool. They were on like a 23-24 match win streak, and then they lost first round of the US Open, like Will said. So, I think the more dominant kind of teams and storylines in men's doubles, the better, because the margins are so tight. So from a fan perspective, it can be hard to keep up and build that rapport and that fan base for teams. So hopefully we'll see more of those stories continue.
Right. And you guys would know better than me, but I think they were unbroken in that match too and lost it in 2 breakers, or they might have gotten broken, but hey.
Cash and Glasspool.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. That's probably the case though.
Yep.
A lot of, there's so many men's
That's
matches.
pretty common.
7-6, 7-6, and there's 0 breaks of serve. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it just gives you an idea of the margins. All right. So let's move over to the women's doubles. It was a 3 seed. Dabrowski and Rutliff. They took down the 1 seed, Siniakova and Taylor Townsend. Guys, I mean, probably as good of a final as you could have asked for in terms of, top seeds playing. It was actually the top 4 seeds were playing in the semifinal. So what would you make of that? Does that happen often?
No, it does not.
Yeah.
It's actually happened a couple of times this year, though, at the majors,
Really?
which
Okay.
it's been like a recent trend.
Interesting.
Oh, I didn't even know that. What other majors did that happen in, Nan?
So I believe 3 of the 4 majors this year, there have been at least 3 of the top 4 seeds.
Okay,
and
yeah.
it's been Gabby and Aaron, Siniakova and Townsend, and then Irani and Paolini. I think have all made at least like maybe 2 or 3 semifinals each. So there definitely is that crop at the top of the women's game that has developed this year after a lot of partner swaps and things that have gone on. But I think those teams have been some of the more standout teams on tour for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, to see the top 4s, it was a kind of blockbuster semifinal. Yeah, Aaron Ratliff, Gabby Dabrowski, they from the semifinal on, I mean, they just played lights out doubles. The 6-4, 6-3 score line is even closer than that match was in the semis. I was courtside for that one, and I mean, they just did not miss a beat. Usually you'll have like kind of a, especially in these 2 out of 3 with ad at the majors, you'll have a couple of games where you'll kind of, maybe your energy will drop or you'll lose focus a little bit or just play a bad couple of games. And they played so well, making first serves, first volleys, returns, crossing. And they're such a fun team to watch because they are, both double specialists. I know Siniakova and Townsend, you might call double specialists as well, but they both, have a singles career that they still focus on too. So, yeah, I mean, credit to Dabrowski and Ratliff for really locking in the semifinals and finals and playing so well.
Yeah, I have a few follow-up questions in terms of, just thinking about the singles players side of things. It was Taylor Townsend who made a mini run on the women's side. How much does that affect, if at all, her thoughts about doubles? She's obviously much better ranking-wise in the women's doubles, and I don't know if that, affects her mental preparation going into matches, but just curious how you kind of weigh how she deals with, maybe in an unexpected run and trying to, multitask a little bit as the week goes on, or is there really just none of that? It's, she's done it before.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for Townsend specifically. I just know in general, when a player is late into the draw in both, they prioritize singles generally because there's just more money there and it's a lot more money.
Right.
So it's very understandable that they do that. In this case, I think Townsend made the 3rd round, I believe. So she didn't make it like deep into week 2 in both. So I would imagine typically with that scenario, you're going to have a day where you have a singles match, a day where you have a doubles match. So it just means you have a little bit less practice time and a little bit more recovery time, just focused on that.
Yep.
So that you can prepare for both. And then what practice time you do have, most players, it seems like they focus that practice time around the singles match. And when you're playing with Katerina Siniakova, especially in the early rounds, you can probably get away with that too. As they, I don't think they dropped a set until the finals. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And Taylor did make the round of 16 too. A quick correction.
Round of 16. Okay. 4th round.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was speaking of Siniakova, I was also curious, who she was rooting for in that singles match with 2 of her, her ex partner, who she's actually playing with this week in Asia, and then her current partner Taylor. It'd be interesting to ask her thoughts on the match and which side she may have been on.
That's right. She probably wanted it to end as soon as she can. That was a tough match, probably for her to watch.
I imagine too, after losing 8 match points to Krejcikova, which she rightfully earned. If you watch that match, it was pretty epic. But I imagine Townsend had to have been pretty out of gas, just mentally and emotionally. And then after all the drama that blew up with Ostapenko too, that was just, she was very visible, kind of a breakout star of the U.S. Open. And I imagine she was emotionally and physically gassed going deep in both draws this year.
Right. Another player I want to mention, quite a famous player, Venus Williams. So she got a wild card for both the singles draw and the doubles draw. She went out early in the singles, losing to Karolina Muchova. And then she paired up with Leylah Fernandez, and they were quite the story. You guys want to talk a little bit about, the involvement of Venus Williams and, how it helped the product, the attention, and the excitement about the women's draw?
Yeah, I was there. Got to watch a couple of her matches. She got moved to Louis Armstrong for, I believe, all of her matches, and it was great. I mean, the Armstrong was pretty full. They showed it on ESPN, at least a couple of the matches, which was cool to see. And it shows that also Leylah Fernandez is a good doubles player. I mean, when she wants to be, like, she's played a lot of doubles over the years, knows what she's doing out there, and is a strong player. And I think she probably had a little extra motivation to try to want to win with Venus, versus, if she normally plays doubles with just, whoever from the singles side. So it was cool to see them make a run. It also kind of proves that, some of these former top single stars with multiple majors, if they want to extend their career, then they can keep playing doubles. I think, it's something that I joked about when Federer retired, when Nadal retired, like, keep going and just play doubles. And I know I'm sure they never seriously considered that, but maybe there's a scenario in the future where it does make sense for some of these stars to continue to play on the doubles side, because some of them are very good at it as well. Venus has 14 majors on the doubles side, so she was, I guess you could argue she was an even better doubles player than she was singles player.
I've heard some commentators too, like Renee Stubbs has talked about playing against Kim Clijsters and Martina Hingis in the Legends events, and they just like destroy everyone, I think. So I would imagine like a team like Clijsters and Hingis could still, play top 50, top 20, maybe top 10 doubles if they were, regular on tour. But to, add on to what Will was saying about Venus's run, it was also great for doubles from a TV standpoint too, because I think all of her matches were on ESPN at some point, whether it was highlights or, games here and there or full matches. Like I watched their quarterfinal match, I think on Labor Day or the day after Labor Day. And the whole thing was on ESPN. And it was like one of the marquee matches, especially when in the singles draw too, the middle weekend around like round of 16 time frame, like a lot of the men's matches were kind of duds because, they had so many seeds fall out, and maybe a couple of the women's matches too. So doubles, I think, was really holding up the attention for a couple of those days when there were so many dramatic storylines and, Venus's win, and then just a lot of great epic matches in men's and women's doubles. So I remember just a lot of people on Twitter and Instagram just tweeting about how there was so much good doubles attention and momentum those few days in the middle of the tournament when there was a little bit of a singles lull. So that was nice to see Venus sort of carrying the doubles torch there.
No, totally. I agree. I thought it was really it was well done by the tournament. Any final thoughts, guys, on the women's draw? Were you surprised by, the final, the champions? Anything else that comes to mind? No, I mean, they won it a few years ago in 2023, and when they are playing their best, they're as good as anyone, Dabrowski and Routliffe. So it wasn't super surprising. It looks like we do have a few comments here in the chat. Sure. It looks like somebody looked up your 2012 BSC roster photo, Hanlon, and says "brotastic haircut." That's pretty funny.
I can't see the comments with my view for some reason, but yeah, that was a great era.
Would you call Paolini? Somebody asked, would you call Paolini a double specialist? Probably not. She's a top 10 singles player as well. I think she's fantastic at both. There was one more. Oh, is Siniakova still playing with Mahach in mixed? She hasn't been this year, I don't believe. It's hard to remember all the mixed partners because there's only 4 tournaments per year, or 5, I guess, if you count Indian Wells, and then 6 with Olympics. And then Siniakova doesn't always make a deep run, although she won Wimbledon, right, with Sim Verbeek, I believe. And yeah, so I don't think she's played with Mahach this year. I think there was one more question. Didn't Layla go on a blind date via Instagram? I have no idea.
Oh, she did. She did post about that.
Okay.
I wanted to ask her. I was in DC when Layla won the singles tournament. And one of her press conferences, she was in a really good mood. I considered asking her about it. I think it would have been fine, but you know how sometimes in the press conferences you can ask the wrong question and then like get a snarky response or go viral. Or I didn't want to be one of those reporters who got broadcasted everywhere for asking a women's tennis player specifically a dating related question. So I decided to steer away from that. But I'm curious to see how her dating luck has fared since then, though.
Love it. All right. Last few minutes here, guys. I want to ask you a little bit about the Davis Cup. We just had the tie this past weekend, and then it'll be the finals come the end of November. And you guys were down in Delray and got to watch the U.S. take on the Czech. And they did get a doubles point for that. You guys want to talk a little bit about that experience and kind of the environment and excitement behind that?
Yeah, Hanlon, I'll let you start.
Yeah, we had a great time. Delray is a really cool town. I don't know if you've been before, but I had been wanting to go to the ATP 250 there for several years and haven't been able to make the dates work. So it was great to have a tie in the U.S. This was also the first home tie that we've had, I think, in 4 years. So it was great on all fronts, minus the outcome. Obviously singles was a huge disappointment that we had that 2-1 lead and then couldn't get the job done. But I mean, the Czechs do have a really solid team, and I think they could certainly win the whole thing if Italy doesn't, run through the field like they did last year. But again, doubles really stole the show for the weekend. It was the main. I mean, my parents came too, and they said doubles was by far the highlight for them as well, and it was really like the centerpiece of the action on Saturday, especially because of the weather delays and everything. By the time the match started and finished, it was over like a 5-hour period, and there's really dramatic 3-set win. And I think I wrote a story about this too, but it was definitely a special moment, I think, for Rajiv to finally get a sort of a signature doubles win in front of the U.S. crowd after all the unnecessary drama with the lineup and questionable captain decisions from Marty Fish and then Bob Ryan last year, just prioritizing some of the singles players in the doubles spot and not bringing Rajiv or playing Rajiv. So it was really cool to see him and Austin get that big win because they have been such a loyal doubles team for Team USA, both at the Olympics, winning silver last year, and then also they've been journeymen for the Davis Cup team over the last several years, going to Uzbekistan, to Croatia, to Lithuania, to China, and playing all these away ties for several years. And so it was really cool to see them be the spotlight of the weekend. As unfortunate it was that US couldn't pull it out.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't have much to add. It was, I mean, the atmosphere was electric. Austin told us afterwards, he said, I haven't been this pumped up for a win in a long time. They kind of, Hanlon asked a good question, how it stacks up compared to being world number one in doubles, winning Grand Slams. And they talked a lot about the team environment and how much that means to them and to play for their country. So it was really cool to see them get that win. It was unfortunate that Ben Shelton and Tommy Paul were both injured, I guess, and couldn't play because I think even with just one of those, the U.S. probably advances. Tiafoe wasn't in his best form. And then Fritz, lost a tight one to Lehechka after the doubles win. But the atmosphere was really cool. And, just to echo what Hanlon said, I feel like some of those home ties, those team environments are really, really fun to be a part of.
No, for sure. Definitely a tough weekend on the American side, just because you're right. I mean, we didn't have Shelton, didn't have Paul. Tiafoe, I don't think was all there, given that he withdrew from the Laver Cup, and then Fritz was sick all week, and just a tough draw there in that sense. But hey, a doubles point, and you guys obviously got to experience a good crowd. So that's definitely a good takeaway. And I just want to highlight how the Davis Cup, it's doubles is such an important aspect to it. I feel like people sometimes don't think of it in that sense, but sometimes you're going to have the rubber match being decided in a doubles format. Just any kind of overall thoughts you guys have about Davis Cup and doubles, and maybe if it's sort of unique or challenging when players who they don't play together, obviously on the tour, and then they're forced to come together. What sort of tactics and conversations are being had?
Yeah, I feel like most of these guys have played together before in some sort of like play for your country format.
Right.
But yeah, they're not playing together on a regular basis. Austin and Rajiv were earlier in the year, but ended up splitting and have been playing with different partners since March or April. So yeah, I think they're all pretty familiar with each other. I mean, there's a lot of like game planning and stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and they have the full week to kind of prepare and scout their opponents and things like that. But it is cool that they have the doubles match as the third match out of 5. So that way it always matters, even if a team's up 2-0. The doubles is the clincher.
Yep.
And obviously if it's 1-1, it's a massive moment. So I think it's really cool. And I mean, we're seeing, the U.S. women have won earlier today or yesterday, I guess, in Billie Jean King Cup, which is cool to see them in the semifinals. I just think overall the team environment is something that tennis can double down on, but they need to have fewer team environment tournaments and then just market them better and make them a bigger deal, because right now it seems like there's just too many of them to where it's all kind of watered down. Like none of them quite mean what they should. Because we did have Davis Cup last week. Billie Jean King Cup's going on right now. We have Laver Cup going on right now. There's more Davis
United
Cup coming up
will
in
be here
November.
before we know it in January.
Yeah. There's just so much. So I think consolidated, and to circle back, one of the big takeaways from the U.S. Open is like mixed doubles is a massive opportunity. So if we can do team events that involve mixed doubles too, I mean it's a huge opportunity. So.
Or having mixed at the Masters events too. I know there's been talks about like with the 2-week format, why not have a mixed doubles draw on the second week or on the back half of the Masters, just to give more content. So it'll be interesting to see if any of the, I know Indian Wells experimented with an exhibition has experimented with like an exhibition the last year or two. So will we see other Masters 1000 events, take that a step further and have a more legit mixed competition? Hopefully. It'd be great, because I know a lot of people are complaining about how slow some longer and drawn out some of the Masters events feel like with this new format.
Totally. Well, I just want to thank you guys so much for taking the time and coming on. And it's always great to obviously learn more about the doubles game, but hear your thoughts and analysis and insights on the sport as a whole. So really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we get to have another conversation before the end of the year after Davis Cup.
Awesome. Thanks, Brenner, for having us on.
Yeah, thanks, Brenner. Enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.
Looking forward to it. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.